Look like one former NBA referee has took the gloves off in this gambling scandal. He's exposing everybody. Guys, for this one here,
everyone thinks they know the WNBA's shiny exterior. But what actually happened behind closed doors is so much more disturbing than you can imagine. It starts with referees finally speaking out about systematic pressure, a ticking clock of corruption allegations, and leadership that seems to be actively ignoring the crisis.
The whistleblowers is coming out of the woodwork. Now, we know Adam Silver was pressed hard this past weekend whenever he was out at games, making an appearance, and they wasted no time at all getting him pretty much putting the camera in his face.
The WNBA has been wrestling with controversy after controversy, but nothing quite like the seismic revelations surfacing now. Former referees and league insiders are coming forward with claims that paint a truly disturbing picture of how the league operates under Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's watch. These aren't just minor grievances about missed calls or questionable judgment errors. We're talking about systematic issues that fundamentally question the very foundation of competitive integrity in the league.
And Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing after an NBA investigation ruled that there was no NBA rules violated. What do you make of that decision now amid the FBI's allegations against him?
So what happened was, because bets were placed through legalized legal betting companies, they picked up aberrational behavior around a particular game in March of 23. And so that was brought to our attention by the regulators and the betting companies. We then looked into that situation and were very transparent about it. And while there was that aberrational betting, we frankly...
Let's start with what these referees are actually saying is absolutely wild. Simple officials have reported immense pressure from league management to subtly influence game outcomes. They're not talking about blatantly fixing games like some sensationalized Hollywood movie script. It's far more calculated than that. Referees describe receiving guidance on which star players should be protected and which ones can be called more aggressively. They talk about pre-game meetings where certain narratives are emphasized, making it crystal clear what the league wants to see unfold on the court.
How about now?
Yes, sir. There he is.
So, Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific. Good morning, guys.
Fantastic.
Good morning.
Fantastic. Appreciate you for making the time. So what do you think about what's going on here?
You know, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think when you talk about arrests being made by the FBI, I think the guys that are arrested are going to sit down and, be scared to death with what they're facing, and they're going to start to cooperate, and they're going to tell the FBI everything they know, and this thing is going to spread like wildfire, and you're going to...
This is the part that will blow your mind. One former official, who spoke anonymously out of fear for their career, described a pervasive culture of fear. Referees who didn't fall in line, who didn't play by the unspoken rules, found themselves receiving fewer assignments. Their performance reviews would mysteriously decline, even when their actual on-court work remained consistently strong and objective. It's a classic corporate intimidation tactic, but this is supposed to be professional sports. The games are supposed to be fair, unbiased, and decided by the athlete's skill. Instead, referees are being turned into tools for shaping storylines rather than enforcing rules equally for everyone.
Tim, why do you think this is why 2 days before this announcement is made, or even 1 day before this announcement is made, Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, was on Pat McAfee? You think that was intentional?
Absolutely. I think he was trying to, get ahead of the fire a little bit and talk about that they need to get gambling under control. And I think that he's going to continue to try to figure out a way to put a lid on this, but it's going to be very difficult for him because I think this is...
So Adam Silver went on Pat McAfee, I'm guessing, before all the accusations coming out.
But here's where it gets really crazy. The Caitlin Clark situation perfectly illustrates exactly what these referees are talking about. Throughout the season, the physical play against her reached levels that simply would never have been tolerated if it had happened to other players. Opponents could practically body check her, grab her jersey, elbow her in the face, and somehow the whistle stayed silent. Meanwhile, she'd get called for the slightest touch on defense, often when she was making a clean play. The inconsistency was so glaringly obvious that even the most casual fans started questioning what they were actually watching. Referees have confirmed that Clark was essentially marked as someone who could be played rough without consequences. The reasoning behind this decision supposedly came from higher up in the league office. Some insiders suggest it was about not wanting to appear like the league was giving her special treatment because of her massive popularity. Others claim it was even more calculated. that creating controversy and physical play around Clark generated essential attention and boosted ratings, which is exactly what the league craves. Either way, the devastating result was the same. One player was subjected to a completely different and frankly dangerous standard than every other player on the court. This isn't just about one star player, though. The referee complaints extend to how the league handles discipline and consistency across the board. Officials describe a system where penalties and fines seem arbitrary and disconnected. Players with certain connections or who play for specific teams often receive lighter punishment. Kathy Engelbert's response to these growing, undeniable concerns has been dismissive at best. She talks about record viewership and revenue growth while completely ignoring the legitimate, deeply concerning complaints about how the league actually operates. When pressed about officiating controversies, she predictably deflects with corporate speak about continuous improvement and respecting the process. It's the kind of vague, empty answer you get from politicians who know they're guilty but hope people will forget if they just keep talking without saying anything meaningful. The financial relationships within the WNBA also raise some serious, uncomfortable questions. Engelbert came from the corporate world, specifically from Deloitte, where she was CEO. Her approach to running the WNBA has been heavily focused on business metrics and sponsor relationships. Now, that's not inherently a bad thing, but it becomes incredibly problematic when competitive integrity is clearly taking a backseat to commercial interests. Referees have indicated that certain teams, particularly those with larger markets or powerful ownership connections, consistently get favorable treatment. Smaller market teams feel like they're playing a rigged game where the deck is stacked against them before the ball even tips off. The Wall Street Journal investigation into civil rights violations regarding Clark's treatment was a watershed moment that cannot be ignored. Major media outlets don't publish those kinds of serious accusations lightly. They conduct extensive research and interviews before going public with their findings. The fact that such a respected publication felt confident enough to call out the league's potentially discriminatory practices should have triggered immediate major reforms. Instead, Engelbert's office issued a bland, generic statement and apparently hoped the story would just blow over. That tells you everything you need to know about her priorities right now. League insiders describe a toxic work environment where speaking up about these issues means risking your entire career. Referees aren't the only ones feeling this immense pressure. Coaches have privately complained about being told which players should get more minutes or which storylines they should emphasize in media interviews. Team executives talk about being overruled on crucial personnel decisions because the league office wants to maintain certain perceived competitive balances or market dynamics. This level of micromanagement absolutely destroys the authenticity that makes sports so compelling in the first place. The gambling scandal connections make everything even more concerning and alarming. When referees have the perceived power to influence game outcomes through selective enforcement, and when there's evidence that betting patterns sometimes seem to predict controversial calls before they even happen, you've got a serious, dangerous problem on your hands. The NBA is currently dealing with its own gambling controversies, and the WNBA seems determined to pretend it's somehow immune to the exact same issues. Engelbert has been noticeably quiet about implementing stronger safeguards and transparency measures that would genuinely protect the league's integrity. Player reactions to these increasingly damning revelations have been mixed, as you might expect. Some veterans are finally speaking out, frustrated that their careers are being manipulated by forces entirely beyond their control. Others remain silent, worried about retaliation or potentially losing lucrative endorsement opportunities. Younger players often don't even realize how abnormal the situation is, because they've never experienced a properly run, fair professional league. They might actually think this level of interference and inconsistency is just how things are supposed to work. The comparison to other professional sports leagues is frankly damning. The NFL certainly has its issues, but referee assignments and performance reviews are handled with significantly more transparency. The NBA has made genuine efforts to explain controversial calls and publicly admit mistakes. MLB has detailed protocols for discipline and rule enforcement. The WNBA, under Kathy Engelbert's leadership, operates more like a startup desperately protecting its brand than an established sports league truly committed to fair competition. The secrecy and lack of accountability would absolutely never fly in more mature professional organizations. Television partners are reportedly growing increasingly concerned about the officiating controversies plaguing the league. Networks pay good money for broadcast rights, and they need fans to trust that what they're watching is legitimate and fair. When social media explodes after every single game with clips showing obviously missed calls or inconsistent enforcement, it fundamentally damages the product's credibility. Broadcasters have quietly pushed the league office to address these systemic issues, but Engelbert seems more interested in hitting revenue targets than fixing fundamental structural problems. The referee union has been surprisingly quiet through much of this mounting controversy. Some officials who've bravely spoken out did so only after leaving the league, which strongly suggests they feared retaliation while actively working. The union should be aggressively protecting its members and fighting for objective performance standards and transparent assignment processes. Instead, there's been mostly silence. That either means the union is complicit in the alleged corruption, or it's simply too weak to effectively advocate for its members. Neither option is good for the league's future. International referees who have worked WNBA games have expressed genuine shock at the operational culture they've encountered. Officials who work in European leagues or FIBA competitions describe a much more professional environment, where calls are reviewed objectively, and referees aren't pressured to favor certain outcomes. They talk about being confused by the politicking and relationship management that seems to matter more than actual rule knowledge and game management skills. The WNBA's reputation in international basketball circles has taken a serious hit as a result. Engelbert's background as a corporate executive rather than someone with deep roots in basketball clearly shows in how she's handled these crises. She treats competitive integrity issues like mere PR problems that require messaging strategies rather than fundamental necessary reforms. Her public statements are filled with buzzwords about growth and empowerment while completely avoiding substantive questions about fairness and accountability. It's corporate doublespeak when fans and players desperately need honest leadership. The timing of these referee revelations is particularly significant because the league is currently in the middle of negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement. Players are demanding better pay and working conditions, but they should also be demanding structural reforms that genuinely ensure competitive integrity. What good is a bigger paycheck if games are being manipulated and careers are being shaped by factors that have absolutely nothing to do with performance on the court? The players' union absolutely needs to make transparency and accountability non-negotiable parts of any new agreement. Some defenders of Engelbert point to the league's financial growth during her tenure. Revenue is up, expansion teams are being added, and media deals have certainly improved. Those are legitimate accomplishments, but they do not excuse the alleged corruption and mismanagement that is poisoning the competitive product. You can grow a business while maintaining ethical standards. The two are not mutually exclusive. Engelbert's fundamental failure is thinking that commercial success somehow justifies or excuses everything else. The fan reaction to these referee revelations has been nothing short of intense. Social media is flooded with people sharing their own observations about suspicious patterns and how games are officiated. Fans have created spreadsheets tracking fouls called per player, analyzed shooting foul discrepancies between teams, and meticulously documented instances where identical plays resulted in completely different calls depending on who committed them. This kind of grassroots data analysis is damning because it clearly shows the problems aren't imaginary. They are real and quantifiable. Clark's situation remains the most visible example of the broader alleged corruption issues. Her rookie season was marked by unprecedented physical abuse that referees consistently and inexplicably ignored. The league fines players for social media posts but not for dangerous plays that could have legitimately ended her career. The message sent was clear. Protecting the league's image mattered more than protecting its players. That's a fundamental betrayal of what a commissioner is supposed to do. The question now is whether anything will actually change. Referee revelations are important, but they need to lead to concrete, lasting reforms. The league needs independent oversight of officiating. Performance reviews must be transparent and based on objective criteria. Discipline decisions need to be clearly explained and applied consistently across the board. Financial relationships between owners, league management, and officials should be fully disclosed. None of this is radical. It's basic good governance that exists in virtually every other professional sports league. Engelbert has shown absolutely no indication that she's willing to implement these kinds of necessary reforms. She's doubling down on her business-first approach, and apparently hoping the controversies will just fade as new storylines emerge. That might work in the short term, but it's actively destroying the league's credibility in ways that will be incredibly hard to repair. Sports fans can tolerate a lot of things, but they will absolutely not tolerate feeling like what they're watching is fake or predetermined. Once that trust is broken, it's almost impossible to rebuild it. The WNBA deserves better leadership than what Cathy Engelbert is currently providing. The players deserve a level playing field where their success is determined by skill and effort, not by which storylines the league office decides to promote. Fans deserve to know that what they're watching is legitimate competition, not corporate theater disguised as sports. Referees deserve to do their jobs without political pressure and career threats hanging over their heads. None of that is happening under the current regime, and that's a profound failure of leadership at the highest level. The corruption allegations against Cathy Engelbert and the WNBA's leadership aren't going away. Referees breaking their silence is just the beginning of a much larger reckoning. The league needs serious reforms and transparency, not more corporate doublespeak. Fans deserve authentic competition, not manipulated outcomes.